ever wished you could get the brain power of, like, GPT-4,
Oh, yeah,
but without the insane price tag?
for sure.
That's the whole idea behind LLM routing.
Okay.
Basically finding clever ways to make the most advanced AI, accessible and affordable.
Uh-huh.
We're going to dive into a brand new research paper today,
Okay.
all about a routing method called RouteLLM.
Interesting.
You with me?
Absolutely.
It's a fascinating approach to a problem that's, becoming increasingly important as these large language models get more powerful.
Right.
And let's face it, more expensive to run.
Yeah, exactly. It's like wanting to travel by private jet all the time.
Uh-huh.
Sure, it's fast and luxurious,
Yeah.
but who can afford that?
Right.
So what these researchers are trying to figure out is how to give you that private jet power when you really need it,
Okay.
but also let you take a taxi when that makes more sense.
Gotcha.
They're essentially building a traffic cop for AI,
Okay.
a router that analyzes your request and figures out which LLM is the best fit for the job. The big, powerful ones or the smaller, more cost-effective models.
Okay, so if I ask a simple question like, what's the capital of France?
Yeah.
The router might send that to a smaller LLM.
Right.
But if I ask something super complex like, write a symphony in the style of Beethoven,
Uh-huh.
it knows to call in the big guns.
Exactly. You got it.
Okay.
The key here is that this router isn't just randomly assigning tasks. The RouteLM framework is all about training the router to predict which LLM is most likely to win,
Okay.
meaning give the best response for a given query.
So how do they teach it to do that?
Right.
Is it watching hours of AI battles, taking notes on which models win?
It's actually more clever than that.
Okay.
They're using something called preference data. There's this platform called Chatbot Arena, where humans actually compare the responses of different LLMs and vote for the best one.
Wow.
The router learns from these human preferences,
Uh-huh.
almost like it's studying the wisdom of the crowds.
That's brilliant. But I'm guessing just using data from Chatbot Arena wasn't enough to train a really effective router.
You're sharp.
Uh-huh.
They realized they needed to get creative with data augmentation,
Okay.
essentially finding ways to beef up their training data.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting.
All right.
Spill the tea on those data augmentation techniques.
Oh.
What did they come up with?
They used two main approaches.
Okay.
First, they tapped into what they called golden label data sets. These are benchmarks, like something called MMLU,
Okay.
which stands for Massive Multitask Language Understanding, if you're curious,
Okay.
where you already have predefined correct answers.
Ah, so they're using existing benchmarks to create training scenarios where they already know which answer is best.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
It's like giving the router a set of practice problems with a cheat sheet.
Love it.
Yeah.
What was their other technique?
This one is even more fascinating.
Okay.
They actually use GPT-4 itself to judge the responses of other LLMs, creating even more training data.
They used one LLM to judge the performance of others.
Yes.
Isn't that a bit like having a student grade their own classmates?
It might sound counterintuitive,
Yeah.
but remember, GPT-4 is considered the gold standard in this field.
Okay.
It's like having the valedictorian help assess the rest of the class.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So they've trained this router on all this data, and now it's ready to play AI traffic cop.
Yes.
But did they just create one type of router?
Nope.
Okay.
They actually tested out 4 different routing approaches.
Oh, a good old-fashioned AI showdown.
Yeah.
Tell me more.
Well, they tried a variety of techniques.
Okay.
One was a similarity-weighted ranking approach.
Okay.
Basically, it looks for similar queries in the training data to figure out which LLM performed well on those in the past.
Gotcha.
It's like looking for a precedent.
Uh-huh.
We've seen a question like this before, and this LLM aced it.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
What else did they try?
They also explored matrix factorization, a fancy way of saying they're trying to uncover hidden relationships between models and queries.
Okay.
Think of it like those people who bought this also bought
Yeah.
recommendations you see online.
Ah, so it's looking for underlying patterns to match the right LLM to the right task?
Right.
Clever.
Yeah.
What were the other two approaches?
They tested out BERT, which is a powerful neural network for text classification.
Okay.
And lastly, and this is where it gets meta, they experimented with using a smaller LLM as the router itself.
Whoa, hold on. AI deciding which AI to use.
Yeah.
That's mind-blowing.
It is pretty cool.
So after all that work, did this routing idea actually pay off?
The results were impressive.
Okay.
They tested the routers on 3 different benchmarks:
Mm-hmm.
MT Bench,
Okay.
MMLU, which we already talked about,
Right.
and GSMAK,
Okay.
a data set full of math problems.
So they covered a pretty wide range of tasks.
They did.
What kind of cost savings are we talking about?
Across the board, they saw significant reductions. On MT Bench, they achieved up to a 3.66x cost reduction.
Wait, that means they could potentially complete the same tasks for less than a third of the original price?
Yeah,
That's incredible.
it is.
Wow.
And they saw similar results on the other benchmarks, too.
Wow.
Now, there might be a tiny dip in quality in some cases, but often it's barely noticeable and well worth the cost savings.
Right, like if I can get 95% of GPT-4's performance at a fraction of the cost,
Yeah,
that's a total win in my book.
absolutely.
Okay.
But one of the most fascinating things they discovered is that the router's performance was heavily influenced by how similar the training data was to the tasks it was being tested on.
Okay.
They even came up with a score to measure this similarity.
So if the router was trained on data that closely resembled the tasks it was being evaluated on, it did a better job.
Exactly.
And
This opens up some really interesting possibilities.
like, could we train specialized routers for specific fields?
Exactly. Imagine having an LLM router specifically for medical research or legal tasks or even creative writing.
Yeah.
You could fine-tune it to the specific needs of that field, potentially leading to even greater cost savings and performance.
Okay, my mind is officially blown.
Yeah,
But before we go any further down that rabbit hole,
Okay.
I have another question.
sure.
Did they have to completely retrain the routers every time they switched to a new set of LLMs?
That's what's so amazing about this research.
Okay.
The routers they trained on one set of LLMs actually generalized incredibly well.
Wow.
They could perform effectively even when routing between completely different LLMs.
So that means they're not just learning which specific LLMs are good at certain tasks.
Right.
They're actually learning something more fundamental about the tasks themselves.
Precisely. Like they've developed this deep understanding of which types of problems require which levels of AI horsepower.
That's huge.
It is.
And it makes LLM routing so much more practical and adaptable for real-world applications.
Mm.
This is incredible stuff. Where do we even go from here?
Well, there's still a lot to explore.
This is incredible stuff. I mean, we've barely scratched the surface here, and I'm already seeing a million possibilities.
Right. This idea that we can make super powerful AI more accessible is game-changing.
Totally. And it's not just about researchers and tech giants anymore, right? Who else stands to benefit from this LLM routing magic?
Think about startups and small businesses.
Mm.
They're often working with limited budgets, but LLM routing could suddenly give them access to the same cutting-edge AI tools as the big players.
It's like leveling the playing field. They can innovate and compete without breaking the bank on AI infrastructure.
Exactly. And it's not just businesses either. Researchers in academia, nonprofit organizations, anyone who needs that AI firepower but couldn't afford it before.
This could unlock so much potential. I'm seeing visions of groundbreaking research, innovative projects, all fueled by affordable AI.
It's exciting to think about, but let's get down to brass tacks for a moment.
Yeah.
How much money are we talking about saving here?
Yeah, the researchers mentioned some figures in their paper, right? Put it into perspective for me. Paint me a picture.
Okay, imagine this. Using GPT-4 is like flying private. It'll cost you roughly $25 per $1 million words. Now, a less powerful but still very capable. LLM, something like Mixtral, is more like taking a taxi. It costs less than a quarter for the same distance.
Wow, that's a huge difference. No wonder these cost savings are so significant.
Right, and that's what LLM routing allows you to do, get around for the price of a taxi, even when you need that private jet power for certain tasks.
The researchers said they achieved cost reductions of up to 3.66x. That's like getting a private jet ride for the price of a cab fare.
Pretty much. But of course, you might be wondering, what about the cost of running the router itself? Doesn't that add to the overall expenses?
That's a good point. Is a router just another expensive middleman in this whole process?
Not really. The researchers addressed this, and the routing overhead is actually quite small compared to the cost of running the LLMs themselves.
So it's like a small investment that pays off big time in the long run.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They even gave us some concrete numbers. One of their routers, which runs on a regular CPU, only adds about 37 per $1 million requests.
That's practically nothing compared to the thousands of dollars you could be saving on LLM usage.
Right. And their other routers, which run on GPUs, are even more efficient. So the overhead is definitely something to be aware of, but it's not going to break the bank.
Okay, that makes sense. But before we get too carried away with all these cost savings and amazing possibilities, let's talk about the future.
Yes, there's still so much to explore with LLM routing. What are some of the directions this technology could take?
Well, you briefly mentioned personalized LLM routers earlier. I'm dying to hear more about that.
Okay, imagine this. Each of us has a personal AI assistant that's constantly learning our individual needs and preferences.
Like a router that knows my writing style, my research interests, even my sense of humor.
Exactly. It would know which LLM is the perfect fit for any given task, like a super efficient brain, delegating different cognitive functions to specialized AI models.
That sounds straight out of science fiction, but how realistic is it? What would it take to make that happen?
It's definitely ambitious, but not impossible.
Yeah.
We'd need some serious breakthroughs in a few key areas.
Like what?
First, we need algorithms that can truly understand and adapt to each user's unique profile. And equally important, we need rock-solid privacy and security measures to protect sensitive user data.
Those are big hurdles for sure.
They are. But the field of AI is moving at an incredible pace. What seems like a distant dream today could be our reality tomorrow.
I can already picture a future where personalized LLM routing is as commonplace as having a smartphone.
It's definitely within the realm of possibility, and the implications are mind-boggling for productivity, creativity, you name it.
It would be like having a team of AI experts at our fingertips, always ready to assist us with any task. But personalized LLM routing is just one path, right? What other exciting avenues are out there?
Another fascinating area is the development of specialized routers for specific fields like we touched on earlier.
Right, having LLM routers for medicine law education, the possibilities are endless.
Absolutely. Imagine a medical LLM router that's been trained on a massive library of medical knowledge. It could help doctors diagnose diseases with incredible accuracy, recommend personalized treatments, even accelerate drug discovery.
And a legal LLM router could be a game changer for lawyers helping with research contract drafting case analysis.
Exactly. And these specialized routers could be even more efficient and cost-effective than general-purpose ones because they're laser-focused on a specific domain.
It's like having a whole team of AI specialists, each with deep expertise in their field. This is seriously cool stuff.
It is, and as LLM technology continues to advance, we can expect even more innovative applications of routing to emerge.
This idea of using LLMs to control and optimize other AI systems is particularly intriguing to me.
Like AI becoming self-aware and taking charge of its own development.
Yeah, it raises some profound questions about the future of intelligence and the role of humans in an increasingly automated world.
It's both exciting and a little bit daunting, isn't it?
Totally. But one thing's for sure, the future of AI is going to be wild, and LLM routing is likely to be a major driving force.
Absolutely. And this deep dive has just scratched the surface. There's so much more to discover and explore in this rapidly evolving field.
Well, I don't know about you, but my brain is officially full. We've covered a ton of ground today.
We have, from the technical nuts and bolts to the far-reaching implications, it's been quite a journey.
And I, for one, am even more excited about the potential of AI than I was before.
Me too. It's clear that this technology has the power to transform our world in ways we can barely imagine.
But before we wrap things up completely, I want to hear your thoughts on something.
Okay, sure.
We've talked about all these amazing possibilities, but are there any potential downsides or challenges that we should be aware of? It's like we're standing on the edge of this whole new frontier, and it's both exhilarating and a little bit, well, intimidating.
That's a great way to put it. We're talking about tools that could potentially reshape entire industries, change the way we work, learn, even create. It's natural to have some questions and maybe even a little apprehension.
Exactly. So let's dive into that a bit. What are some of the challenges or potential downsides that come with this LLM routing revolution?
One thing that immediately comes to mind is the complexity of these systems. We've talked about all these different routing approaches, the training data, the fine-tuning. It's a lot to wrap your head around.
Right, and as these systems become more sophisticated, it might be harder for people to understand how they work, how decisions are being made.
That's a valid concern. Transparency and explainability are crucial for building trust in AI, and we need to make sure that these routing mechanisms are clear and understandable even to those who aren't AI experts.
It's like with any powerful tool, you want to know how it works before you trust it completely. And speaking of trust, another challenge is ensuring reliability.
Absolutely. These routers are making decisions that could have significant consequences, especially as we move towards things like personalized routing or specialized routers for sensitive fields like medicine.
So we need to be absolutely certain that these routers are making the right choices, routing requests to the most appropriate and capable LLMs. No room for error there.
Exactly. Rigorous testing and validation are essential, And we need to develop robust mechanisms for monitoring and evaluating these systems in real-world scenarios.
It's like building a bridge. You wouldn't just assume it's safe, you'd test it thoroughly, make sure it can handle the load. Same principle applies here.
Right, and then there's the question of access and control.
What do you mean by that?
Well, as LLM routing becomes more widespread, we need to think about who has access to this technology, who controls it, and how it's being used.
So not just the technical challenges, but also the ethical and societal implications. This could be a powerful tool for good, but like any tool, it could potentially be misused.
Precisely. We need to have thoughtful conversations about how to ensure that LLM routing is used responsibly, ethically, and for the benefit of everyone, not just a select few.
It sounds like there's still many questions to be answered, many challenges to be addressed, but that's often the case with any groundbreaking technology, right?
Absolutely. The early days of the internet, personal computers, smartphones, they all came with their own set of challenges and uncertainties. But we found ways to adapt, innovate, and ultimately harness these technologies for good.
And I have a feeling it will be the same with LLM routing. We'll figure out how to address these challenges, overcome the obstacles, and unlock the incredible potential that this technology holds.
I'm confident that the human spirit of innovation is powerful. And when we combine that with the remarkable capabilities of AI, there's no limit to what we can achieve.
That's a great note to end on. This has been an incredible deep dive into the world of LLM, or routing, a technology that's poised to reshape the future of AI and perhaps even the world as we know it.
It's been a fascinating conversation. We've explored the technical intricacies, the mind-blowing possibilities, and the important questions that we need to consider as this technology continues to evolve.
And for our listeners out there, we hope this deep dive has sparked your curiosity, ignited your imagination, and maybe even inspired you to think about how LLM routing could impact your own life and work.
So keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep into the ever-evolving world of artificial intelligence.
Thanks for joining us on the deep dive.
See you next time.